Good morning, Advocate Mlotshwa.
Morning, Mr. Chairperson.
How are you this morning?
Super fine. And you?
I'm cool, man. So, as you are aware, we are appointed by the President as the panel to assist in the process of appointing the National Director of Public Prosecutions. On my right is Auditor General Makwetu,
Pleased to meet you.
followed by Mr. Scott,
Thanks.
Mr. Notiesi, and
Thank
on
you,
my
sir.
left is Advocate Majola,
Sabo.
followed by Advocate Celia, and Mrs. Sigoko, and Advocate Manye.
Thank you so much.
You applied for this position of NDPP.
Absolutely right.
I can see that you are currently the Director of Public Prosecutions.
In fact, I crossed the floors in 2015. I'm no longer in the NPA. I left NPA end of 2015.
You are now in your private practice.
Peter Marisbeck Advocates Bar.
It's been a long way from 1993 when you were a cleaner. Where were you cleaning?
It was at a panel beating workshop, Coastal in Stenger. That is where I also... Kwatuguza, yes. It's 33 kilometers away from home, Maphumulo, because I originally hail from Maphumulo.
Then you became an assistant teacher in 1994. And then between 97 and 98, you were an assistant guidance and counseling and a court interpreter in 1998. And 98 to 99, you were a district court prosecutor. 2000 regional court prosecutor, 2001 state advocate for the NPA, 2003 senior state advocate NPA, and 2008 deputy director of public prosecutions, 2010 director of public prosecutions, and then now in private practice.
That is the position.
I can see also that you are an academic. BUs, LLB, LLM, Criminal and Procedural Law, Human Resources Management Program, Criminal and Procedural Law, BA Honours Degree, MA Philosophy.
Yes, that is the second master's I'm doing this year with the fervent hope that by the end of the year I will complete it.
But today we are more interested whether you are fit and proper to be the NDPP. So recall that we gave you an assignment, case studies.
That is the position.
Yeah. So I would like to ask you on that one, but with specific reference on the issue of you being fit and proper in terms of your experience, conscientiousness, integrity, your impartiality, your independence as an NDPP to take decisions without fear, favor, or prejudice, whether you are acting in a professional manner, not to be influenced by politics, by the public, even by the judiciary. So when answering these case studies, you must take that into account so that we should see and feel your attributes as being a fit and proper person. Take into account the Constitution, the NPA Act, the Code of Conduct, as well as the judgments of our courts, especially to judgments of the Constitutional Court.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairperson. Firstly, the first scenario relating to a very trusted advisor, Mr. Ngwenya, to the NDPP. When reading the email, impression I got is that he is a person who wanted things to be done according to the book. as a result to his email, I acknowledged receipt, and I also upfront indicated to him that upon reading his email, to me, it prima facie suggests that the matter is both serious and sensitive. With the agreement of...
Advocate Mlodge, you don't have to read, just talk to us.
Yes. Of course, with the conclusion that I will be meeting him so that the meeting can be meaningful, insightful, and constructive. I indicated to him the things that he will have to think about and prepare for the meeting. Among other things, in the light of the fact that the gentleman that happens to be involved here happens to be a foreign national. Hence, I also looked at the mutual legal assistance, the issue of bribery, corruption, and money laundering that happens to be committed by foreign nationals. Obviously, the Section 179 of the Constitution, the NPA Act, with a view to make sure that everything I do is in line with the powers, duties, as well as the responsibilities of the NDPP. The lady Smith, her scenario to me came across as a pure human relations scenario, a scenario that requires one to address the significance of colleagues to work in a peaceful manner. Hence, I suggested that if a meeting is held, she can also be sensitized and conscientized about the significance of a smooth working relationship at a workplace. Another, I got a gut feel that she happens to be in a comfort zone. Then I thought that in a situation of that nature, where a person is in a comfort zone, a person seems to take things for granted. Hence, in my suggestion in relation to the meeting, I was of the view that during the discussion, an idea would be thrown onto her that should a similar situation arise, a possibility of her being rotated looms large. The Minister of Justice, her email was quite impressive, demonstrating that at the bottom of her heart, she wants partnership, collaboration, but in the same breath, it appears to be touching upon the prosecutorial power of the NDPP. So that is why I ended up suggesting that if a meeting is held, and then because the values of the NPA, among other things, make reference to professionalism, that everything is confined within the four corners of decency. The DG demanding accountability with the finances. Again, the blurring of the reporting lines. Well, in a very polite manner, so as to demonstrate professionalism to the DG, indicate that the issue the DG is raising are important. He is complaining about the issue of cost. Well, of course, reminding the DG that in every project that is being put in place, it is bound to result in cost. Hence, there's always a need to conduct a cost-benefit analysis. Analysis in which instance, if it demonstrates that benefit far outweighs the cost, so that will be an indication that the project must proceed. And then drawing the attention of the Director General to the prescripts. The NPA Act saying At any rate, the issue that you are raising of finance, of cost, that is covered in the NPA Act, in the sense that the report that the NDPP will transmit to the Minister of Justice will encapsulate, among other things, the issue of financial situation of the organization. The gentleman, Mr. Koza, he is a gentleman from SSA. Again, the impression I got is that some level of awareness is required. He seems to be dictating terms to the NDPP. Hence, in my response, I say to him, sure, we can meet, we can sit across the table, discuss it. In that discussion, we also discuss the issue of the mandates. Are we not confusing the mandates here? If in a situation like this, you dictate or you behave in a manner that tempers with a prosecutorial decision. The Anonymous. Yes, Anonymous has given a very interesting information. Anonymous needs to be commended for a decision Anonymous has made. However, in making a decision as to how the complaint Anonymous has lodged should be handled, one must also take into account that there is also a presumption that everyone is innocent till proven otherwise. And then two, if you look at the setup in the public sector, particularly the disciplinary code, the disciplinary code enjoins the employer and the employer representative in handling a disciplinary situation to refrain from being punitive but corrective. Again, as the NDPP, an indication is made that this person who is alleged to have misconducted himself is in the Western Cape division. Therefore, in that regard, the issue of discipline will be more appropriate if being taken care of by that division, and then request the head of the division, obviously the DPP, to just favor me with a report as to how he would have steamrolled the situation, addressed the situation, and for him to also indicate going forward as to how a situation of this nature, if it arises in future, can be handled. And then there is this long-serving servant, governor. Governor is worried about the office. Governor is making allegations about certain officials within the service. However, when I was reading it, I got an impression that this is just allegation, an allegation that deserves to be investigated. And if investigated and be in a position to confirm what Ms. Governor has said, then necessary disciplinary actions will be taken. That is why in the crafting of a response to Governor, I make sure that the signature, I make sure that my response insulates me as the DPP in the event I would have handled the matter in a manner that cast aspersions upon the relevant officials, and then the investigation is clear, then I'm in trouble in that situation. However, the same with the governor. I think in that situation one will have to visit the office, conscientize and sensitize the officials general about the significance of being ethical, about the significance of being professional, and thereafter conduct some investigations, because legally and in terms of fairness, allegation and evidence operate like two wings of the same bird. By this I mean that you can't be long in allegation and short in evidence. Hence they say he who alleges must prove. So the only situation, it will only be in a situation where the full-scale investigation has been wrapped up, that one will have an idea of an appropriate decision to be taken against the individuals involved.
You haven't said anything about the president?
The issue of the president is a very interesting one. The president drops me, or he calls me upon landing. He says I'm a man of integrity, of ethics. And then there is this situation about the gentleman who is a Russian national. With the president, again, I will stay within the boundaries of decency. First, acknowledge receipt of his email, and then two, indicate to him my willingness, preparedness, and readiness to address the issues he is raising. And then three, indicate to him that my back is against the wall. Against the wall because if I agree to meet the president, that meeting is unlawful. Unlawful in the sense that the NPA Act prescribes in no uncertain terms that the solid reporting line from the DPP is to the Minister of Justice. Suggest to the President that, Mr. President, I humbly suggest to you that in the light of the explanation that I've given you, as well as the law that I've made reference to, that prevents me from meeting you. Firstly, my suggestion to you will be, the avenue is not closed to you, Mr. President. You can still pursue your request, but via the minister to whom I report. And then two, we can meet and discuss generally, but not about the case. Because at a human, personal level, anybody can meet anybody. So I think that will make I think that information will be sufficient enough for the president to be able to make an informed decision in relation to his concern.
Just one question arising from your response. You used the words when you are writing to one of the people concerned that you want to insulate yourself. That conjures up in me an image of you wanting to protect your skin by doing a wrong thing, but trying to cover it up by insulating yourself in case there's a problem in the future.
In the light of the fact that there is presumption that there is multiplicity of perspectives, I wouldn't be in a position to challenge that. But I would be respectfully submitting that another perspective from which I was approaching the insulation part of it, maybe I should have used the word caution or great circumspection in the use of words with a mountain of a potential to cast doubt on the concerned individual before even the investigation is conducted. I'm not sure if I'm clear in that regard, Mr. Chairperson.
No, you are the one who has applied for the job. Our role is to ask you so that we get to the issue of you being fit and proper.
I understand fully.
Auditor General.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, Advocate Mlojo.
Morning, sir.
I'm going to deal with the aspect that you've touched briefly on in your case study, and that is to do with the values of the institution. I'm sure you, having been here not long ago, have had sight and may have lived through this environment of the NPA, where these values were promoted. Just as a reminder for you, just so you can be focused on the issues, I'm going to deal with the issue of accountability, credibility, integrity, professionalism, and service excellence. Those are the 5 values that characterize the institution of the NPA. Maybe let me try it this way. What makes you think that you are credible?
I think I'm credible. Credible in the sense that the values that you're making reference to are the values that I've been religiously adhering to for 18 years of my stay within the NPA. I think I'm credible because all the decisions that I took in the NPA, they've never been challenged. You'll recall that credibility galvanizes one to be able to rely on the person. So on that score, I would say I am a credible person, hence one can be able to rely on me. That at each time I have to make a decision, because of my credibility, it is the decision that will be able to stand the test of time, even during the times of volatility.
And of course, having said that, I guess you are one of the candidates that we are looking at for purposes of the NDPP position. And let's assume that you become one of those people that are put forward in the recommendation, and you obviously will be seized with promoting all of these 5 values institution-wide. Could you take us through how you would go through that process in ensuring that the issues that you've just raised in terms of your own personal credibility find expression across the institution, including the other 4 values?
First of all, I think it's an aspect up front we need to agree upon, that a decision to prosecute is not an easy decision. It's not a popular decision. It's a decision that makes the victim happy. In the same breath, a decision that angers the person who will eventually be taken to court and those close to him. As the chairperson kicked off with my CV, you would have noticed that my experience covers, it ranges from that of a cleaner, of an interpreter, of a district court prosecutor, regional court, state advocate, first and foremost, with all those officials within the justice system. In terms of professionalism, whatever I do, my engagement, my interactions with those officials will be highly professional, as I've been over the past 18 years. 2, as the NDPP, if you look as to how the law is structured, particularly Section 179, 5 of the Constitution, as well as the NPA Act, you will have noticed that the prosecutor makes a decision, the DPP makes a decision, deputies make decisions, and then the NDPP remains with 3 duties, powers, and responsibility: develop policy, intervene in an instance where there is non-compliance or contravention of the policy, and then the most controversial one that is playing itself in the media of late, the power to review the decisions. Obviously, if a decision has been taken, let me tell you about my experience in the past. I was the head of the province KwaZulu-Natal for 2 years, from 2010, 17 May to 2012. I made a number of decisions. There were a number of arrests. There were a number of high-profile cases that were taken to court. Circumstances under which I ended up leaving the position, already there was a perception out there that at any rate, whatever decisions he took, the third one, they will all be reviewed. We will see if they will be able to see the day of the light.
In your professional journey, starting from the cleaning services that you provided in KwaTukuza, right up to the present, in your professional role as an advocate, has your integrity ever been called to question?
An answer is a resounding no. Resounding no in the sense that from my days as a cleaner to date, no investigation has ever been conducted against me.
So
no
discipline. If the answer is no, what sort of measures did you take in order to ensure that that indeed remains a no even in the future?
First of all, though you're seeing me today, my personality, I'm an open book. What you see is what you get. If I hear something about you, you report to me, I give you a call. Let's sit down across the table.
No, but when you say what you see is what you get, it's like this bottle. I don't know anything about this bottle in terms of which factory it was made, nor the water inside it. But what I see is the bottle of water that's in front of me. So just say it in clear terms so that I can understand what you mean by that statement.
First of all, I'm a very transparent person. Two, whenever I make a decision, if a person confronts me and say, hey, how did it come about that you made this decision? I know that that person requires education, awareness. Because remember that among other things, a lawyer should teach law, should present law, argue law, and so on and so forth. Then I take that as an opportunity to engage, to interact with the person. As the person leaves, the person says, when we started the discussion, I had a different view, but at the end of this discussion, I'm a different person altogether in terms of comprehending as to what has been happening.
Right. Thanks, Advocate Mlachwa.
Thanks, Mr. Scott.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Advocate Mlachwa.
Morning, Mr. Scott.
I'm just going to touch on a couple of performance issues and managerial and leadership skills, if I may. I note from your progression along the way, very impressive that you've gone through all these various positions. What I want you to know is you were appointed as Deputy Director of Public Prosecutions for KwaZulu-Natal in 2008. It was thereafter that you were appointed in an acting position for the Director of Public Prosecutions in KZN, and that was over a 2-year period, is that correct? Could you tell us what was the reason for your acting appointment, do you know?
As you have already stated that in the year 2010 I was appointed. Before that, there was the DPP Advocate Shamila Badoy in the province. I understand that she joined the ICC at The Hague towards the end of 2009 or end of 2009. When she left the province for ICC, my understanding is that she had made a recommendation because at that time she was going to join the ICC for 12 months. My understanding is that when she left with a suggestion that for 6 months a deputy act in the position as the DPP. She particularized the deputy at the time she was recommending. After 6 months, she identified another deputy who was going to take over. However, when the first deputy was about to wrap up. Towards the end of her 6 months acting, the deputy who was supposed to be taking over, who had been initially recommended, indicated that he was ill to take the position, because to be honest with you, it's quite a challenging and a highly demanding job. So when that happened, then there was a view that it will be more opposite if a person of a black African be the person who takes over. I think, I never verified it. At the time in the province, I was the highest qualified. I had qualifications in management. I had managed some advocates who were reporting to me. I had mentored advocate, mentorship and coaching, which I still do to date. I was so fortunate that I got a memorandum that was transmitted by the then NDPP to Mr. Chairperson, explaining that on the basis of that information, he was of the view that I need to take over as the new acting DPP until Advocate Shamila Batoy comes back. In that memorandum, he also indicated that the investigation he had conducted looking for somebody to act in the position, he was able to establish clearly that in the province I had done quite a number of high sensitive cases and I acquitted myself well. He was able to establish that because of my personality, I had very good human relations with other officials. On that basis, he was of the view that I act for 6 months. Then I acted for 6 months. It became apparent that Advocate Shamila Batoy's stay at the ICC was being extended. Because in May 2010-17, when I was appointed to act, performance-wise, because NPA is measured and there are these measurable objectives: conviction rate, finalization rate, withdrawal rate, court hours, backlog rate. On the basis of that, when I was appointed in May, KwaZulu-Natal was number 8. That is May 2010. In 2011, March, KwaZulu-Natal was number 2. ICAVs will confirm that in my favor in KZN. On that basis, another memo was prepared for the chairperson saying, based on this excellent performance, because logic prohibits contradiction, it will be a huge contradiction if a person who is suitably qualified to act, highly qualified, done a number of cases, court person, evidence is as clear as a day that his acting stint must be extended by another 6 months. Another 6 months, I acted. After that 6 months, 6 months of my acting, it became apparent that there was an issue. I'm not sure whether it was a question of treaty or a convention that the Ministry of Justice and Development was trying to sort out with the Hague, so as to make the appointment of Advocate Shamila Batoy permanent at the ICC. You will see among the documentation that has been attached to the nomination, there is one marked circular to all NPA officials indicating that I will act up until that aspect of my colleague Advocate Shamila Batoy is clarified. I'm giving you this because it will also prick your mind. In 2012, I have to step down, somebody else must come, despite all that. So that is my understanding why I was appointed to act.
And your going to the bar and leaving the NPA, was that a decision that you had made as a direction that you wanted to take personally?
In fact, when I stepped down, because it was not easy, I was depressed, I had to go for operations. I'm a comrade marathon runner. My doctors had recommended that I do not run the 2012 Comrades Marathon against their advices. My finishing time in the Comrades, I think that it was 11:58. So there was a number of things that came to mind, because the impression I got is that the system was letting me down. Paranoid, affecting my family, affecting my kids. The thought of resigning at that time sprang into my mind. As it sprang into my mind, my family, relatives, because everything was in the media, that I was battling under pressure, it was this and that. So there was a view that I thought at that time made sense. The view that said, if you resign now, it will appear as if you messed up. Now, because a new person is coming in, you are now hitting the road. You are running away. Based on that advice, which I thought at the time was a very convincing advice, I decided to stay up until everything percolated. Then, as I decided to stay in the NPA, perhaps I did not furnish you all the court cases that I was doing. My family advised me that because you love court, you love your books, you are a fitness fanatics. They took me to a sport shop. I bought a new pair of Tekis.
What fashion design was that?
It's a Vomero Nike. It's a Vomero Nike. So I bought a pair of Tekis for myself. I think at that time I was doing a BCom degree, industrial and organizational psychology, because with that degree I've got psychology and management up to third year level. Then I decided to drown myself in court, because that's where so I was doing court work. You can see the tension. Then I started picking up problems. In the NPA, there is this culture. If a person projects himself or herself as having access to power, that person does as she or he pleases. As a result, if that person hates you, you'll feel it. I started getting a treatment of some sort. If you go to court, because my conviction rate, as you can see the attachment there, in court I was getting life sentences, 142 years, 90 years. Everybody was impressive in the province about my court experience. But back in the office now, I have to furnish a report, what kind of case I'm doing. I have to furnish a report, was it not an easy case? I'm a human being, I can absorb it. Sometimes as a human being, as you sit back, you kick your shoes off, you put your thinking cap on, you say, perhaps if I've seen this person being shouted at or engaging the judge in court, I'll accept it. I'm yet to see the person in court standing the heat when the judge is throwing questions at the person. But here, we have to. Then I ended up saying, no, enough is enough. Then in 2015, I decided to resign. Well, of course, there was also an opinion in my inner cycle, because I've got friends, senior counsel, and everybody. They were saying, you have got a very good case of legitimate expectation here. You can challenge this appointment. You can take the president as the first respondent in the matter, take the chairperson, because he was the minister at the time, to court as the second respondent, and then as the interested party, the person has been appointed into the position. Then my response was, that would have come across as just like a bitter ex-lover. Once the relationship has ended, then you start hanging out the dirty linen. So I decided against that. So in 2015, I decided to join the bar. I joined the bar in 2015. October, I got my result. I did well. I got an outright pass. I got a certificate of practice. Right now, I am extremely busy in Pietermaritzburg. A number of cases, criminal cases. Like last week, on Monday, I was in the Regional Court, Eskawini, doing bail pending the appeal. On Wednesday, I was in Eskawi in Newcastle. On Thursday, I was in the Labour Court. On Friday, I was arguing the appeal. This week, I'm supposed to be in Ishowe, Regional Court, but I couldn't go because the magistrate is ill. But on Wednesday, I was before the judge, acting judge Hadebe, to do a postponement. Next week, I'm an evidence leader in a disciplinary inquiry. That's the person I am.
I was going to end off with a pun that you were going to tell me that you could always hit the ground running after running so many comrade marathons.
I did 20 Ks yesterday, so today I couldn't run because I had to leave at 4 o'clock in Pietermaritzburg for flight in Durban.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mr. Notiesi.
Thank you. Good morning, Advocate.
Thank you so much. Good morning, Mhlekas.
We started running these interviews Wednesday. Did you watch them on the television?
On Tuesday, I watched 2 candidates. And then Wednesday, as I say, I was in court to arrange a postponement. And then yesterday, I watched, I think I watched 2 yesterday. The candidate in the morning, Johnson, Advocate Johnson. Then I had to sort out some errands. And then in the afternoon, I was able to watch the lady, my colleague, Advocate Manaka.
Thank you. I know I'm just asking that because in your CV, you tell us that your hobby is watching TV. That's why I'm asking that.
My apologies. It might have been a mistake. I don't even watch TV, news or soccer.
No, but don't worry, but that's what you wrote. Then I just pick up. I wouldn't have asked that.
Yes, okay, no thanks.
But now that is not the point. I'll ask you, as we deliberate so that we don't take much time. I know some of the questions will have to make some explanation. I picked up from you that after you have acted as a director for KZN, and you were subsequently not appointed in 2012, somebody else, and you were not quite happy with that arrangement.
To be brutally honest with you, yes, I wasn't happy. So were other people in the system, the judiciary, the attorneys, the advocates. As I indicated to you, there was a very strong view that I had to take my matter to court, but with the consultation and with the family as well, I ended up deciding against that move.
And the person that was appointed instead of you was Advocate Nonko, the person that was appointed to act.
That is the position.
As I understand from you, because I just want to, to have it right. The relations between you and Noko since then were not good. She is the one person that we are referring to, that when you are going to court, you will be asked what were you doing, was it not a weak case, and all that stuff. The person that is connected to powerful.
Okay, let me put it this way. You're 100% right.
Yes.
As a consequence, we were maintaining a highly professional relationship. So whenever we engaged, whenever we interacted, it was only in relation to work. Nothing more, nothing less. But before that, hence she was reporting to me before her elevation into my position. The relationship, I would say, it was a very, to such an extent that we will even talk about families. How is your family? How is mine? Your kids? That kind of stuff. After this incident, that stopped. Not only with me, some people were perceived in the system to be...
In the list of your cases that you have listed here, one of them is the one you described as commonly known as Amigos case. Is the one that involves some MECs there?
Absolutely.
and you say you are the one who took the decision in that particular case to charge those persons.
Absolutely.
Were you involved when the decision to withdraw charges against those LLCs were made?
Okay, as you can see, these are all the records from day one I started acting in KZN until the date I stepped down. I've been going through the records. I will try to cut the long story short so that I make sure that I comply with the principle brevity is the soul. In the year 2012, beginning of 2012, it was already in the media that the possibility of the then NDPP was going to be suspended, that is Menzi Simelane. Then there was this perception that that decision that I'd taken was going to be set aside. And then the new acting NDPP, Advocate Jiba, stepped in. According to my records here, my first interaction with her would have been towards the end of January. Towards the end of January, I received a call from her. I also had a very good relationship with her. I received a call from her saying, Simpiwe, there is a matter that I need to discuss with you. My response to her was, it's fine, but I don't think I'll be in a position to discuss the matter with you without the members of the prosecuting team present. Just a step back a bit. I had assembled a team constituted by Advocate Dunywa, Advocate Vimbani, Advocate Nkanyana, he is now a magistrate, Nomfundo, she is now a regional court magistrate in Mbangeni. So I ended up saying, I will come, but with my team. She said, okay. We went to the head office. There were emails, of course, discussing the matter. Up front, me relating to this section 179, that in the event anybody were to expect me to review my own decision is something that I was not prepared to do. But if it is reviewed up there, I do not have a problem. Then we attended a meeting in June to discuss the matter. Present at that meeting was Senior Deputy there, Mr. Hofemeyer, my colleague, Dr. Silas Ramaide, Advocate Jiba. I see my recording here, I had recorded that at the start of the meeting, she stated that Advocate Mkhwebi was ill and was not going to make it. But I don't think she finished that sentence. Advocate Mkhwebi stepped in. Then the meeting started. As the meeting started, her bite-sized introductory remark to us was, I understand the DPP KZN requires assistance in the matter. And then her second statement was, guys, we need to cut the loss in the sense that some of the accused must be removed from the matter. Okay. Then the meeting started. When the meeting started, Advocate Silas Ramaide, according to my record, said, for a process to be easy, it will be more opposite if my team, in the presentation of the case, they give the position that existed at the time when I made a decision to prosecute, and then give a position so that the meeting could be in a position to juxtapose with a view to determine if there was any new thing that would have emerged. As the leader of the prosecuting team started doing the presentation, Advocate Dunywa, and then analyzing the evidence against each accused, against the accused as a collective. I recorded here, there was a question from Advocate Mkhwebi, by the way, Simpiwe, why do you hate politicians? Then everything just turned on me. The discussion went on up until there was an agreement that charges could not be withdrawn. However, in March already, he had visited KZN and met the team without me present. The following morning, I was on my way to Ladysmith. I saw the headlines in the Mercury that somebody from the head office is putting pressure on the team to withdraw charges against certain individuals. That was in June. Then in July, I was called again to come to VGM. At VGM, I was told that the current DPP was going to take over from me, and then they thanked me for an excellent job that I'd done. Then I accepted that.
So that case was, you were removed, you were deliberately moved from this case so that it can be withdrawn. Just look, if we can be short, I do understand this was very important, that's why I agree. But what I want is that your point is that you were removed from that case so that it can be withdrawn by those who took over.
I think my respectful response to that question would be, if one looks at the facts that I've already presented here surrounding the case, either looking them individually or cumulatively, seem to suggest that way.
All right. In the case of Patel, were you still in that department?
I was still a deputy.
You were still a deputy. Were
Yes.
you involved in the charging of that judge and in the withdrawal of that judge? I mean, it's just short and straight.
I was not involved, but I was approached by people asking if it is proper that the summons could be issued by the regional head and not the criminal court clerk. When I asked, I tried to find out what happened. They said, hey, in this matter, this is what is happening, not even the criminal court clerk. There is a perception that even the summons that were served upon the judge president were not issued by the criminal court clerk. There was some commotion with the criminal court clerks refusing to even give it the case number, asking who brought the summons here. To cut the long story short, I was not involved at all.
Do you know if the prosecutors in the district were involved in all those?
I know because they were my colleagues. One is a chief prosecutor in Mpangeni, one is a chief prosecutor Kuzwayo, and then the other one is Advocate Silepe. Seeing things in the newspapers, I confronted them about the decision, but I asked leave not to disclose what each of one told me.
No, they were not involved according to Ms. Noka. But I mean, Advocate Noka, I can tell you it was just, but I'm not asking about you that. But the fact of the matter, all the district prosecutors just went straight to her, not anybody involved.
That is the position.
That's the position. Okay. Now, what I want from you, there is a picture that we have been given here that in the NPA, there are factions. And these factions, obviously, from your explanation that you've given, they impact onto the operation even in provinces and districts there. Do you confirm that in the NPA there have been factions, divisions and factions?
Let me put it this way. In my 18 years of experience in the NPA, what I observed is there are two groups. A group with prosecuting bones. People are serious about their prosecution work. There is a lazy group that does not want to work. The group that does not want to do work wants to do and take decision that will be in line with the appetite of the outsiders. In which instance, they will use the names of the outsiders to scare devil out of other officials. As a result, the group that is prepared to work ends up not doing its work as prescribed.
Now, if you are appointed as a director of public prosecution, how would you confront such a situation? What is your plan? What is your plan, as you said? I think the AG also asked you that question. Can you come up? You know that there are divisions, there are two groups, there are instances that you have related to. How would you then deal with that situation to ensure that stability returns within the NPA and work ethic is then restored? How do you make sure? What is your plan? Can you tell us so that we can recommend?
Okay. First and foremost, if you look at the NPA Act, especially in relation to the prosecutors that are supposed to be in the NDPP office, it says those prosecutors should be prosecutors who have been appointed to be there or assigned to be there. That's where the problem starts. The second part, assigned to be there. There is a perception that those assigned to be there are assigned to be there so as to pursue certain individuals, even if there is no evidence against those individuals. So my first action will be to establish clearly who has been appointed to be here, who has been assigned to be here, for what reason, get report from the relevant DPPs who would have released them. If there is any memorandum of understanding, get that one sorted out first. You know what the problem at the end of the day? The problem at the end of the day, it's as if there is competition between those prosecutors who are at the NDPP's office with the respective DPP. There is no harmony between the two. So if I get that one out of the way first, I think things will get okay. Then the second one, communication. Open up communication channels. As things stand right now, people can't talk. People are dead scared to say a word. People are scared of disciplinary actions being taken against them. So in terms of as part of the communication, the assurance to them, get out of the box. Start thinking outside the box, because it seems the circumstances has now boxed you in. Hence, you have not been able to think outside the box. It's the same strategy that I'd used in KZN, where I assure prosecutors that, look, to err is human, to forgive is divine. Go to court. If you make a mistake, it's fine. As long as it's a reasonable mistake, you've got my back. Now people are dead scared even to make a mistake. You see a prosecutor going to court with a shoulder, the other shoulder dropping like this because of stress. The assurance that they are safe. And then the other thing, the issue of deliver. Because after all has been said and done, we need to deliver service in the form of justice. I need to get an extra pair of eyes, look at that aspect, see if these to what degree have these problems affected the service delivery in the organization. In the event there are delivery plans in place, obviously I'll have to come up with service improvement delivery plans. In the event the delivery plans are not in place, obviously I'll have to come up with a delivery plan. And then the most critical part, I love stats. I think I'll get one or two person to look at the stats closely with a view to see how far or close are we in relation of these measurable objectives I've presented here, because there are relevant percentages for conviction rate, withdrawal rate, and so on and so forth. So that will go a very long way in demonstrating to me areas that I need to consider as urgent and areas that I need to consider as important. Prioritization or reprioritization, you may call it.
Yeah. Lastly, from my part, can you tell this panel that, in fact, it will be twofold because it's the last question. One, that today there is political influence in the NPA, whether there is political influence or not. I'm asking that question because you have told us that somebody would say there are some powerful people who are interested. That's why I'm asking you that first question. The second question, whilst we're in KZN, do you confirm that there was influence? In fact, until you left, there was interference in that office of the DPP.
Let me answer the second one before I answer the first one. I've got a number of emails that I have here. For instance, the matter relating to Tosham Pandey, 1.5 million rand or 1.3 million rand. There was an arrest. After the arrest was made, one morning I'm sitting in my office, I'm receiving a memorandum from Advocate Mkhwebi saying he wants an explanation. There are representations that have been made to him. He is considering those representations. If you're interested, I can give you the copy of the memorandum, but the tone of the memorandum, the cross-examination contained in there, what evidence, what is it? My response to that was, you're a special director, I'm the DPP. How did it come about that the matter landed in the office without me first seeing the matter here? Alternatively, the NDPP reviewing the matter. Eventually, he responded saying the matter must proceed. I've got a number of cases, but I don't want to say much about them because most of them are already in court. The cattle amendment. If you look at all these aspects, the only inescapable inference one is able to draw, and I think it's the inference that excludes all other inferences, point to interference. Most importantly, when I was in charge of the province, my security was at risk. I was given bodyguard. A month before I stepped down, I used to arrive in the office at 6 o'clock and leave at 6 o'clock in the evening. When I left at 6 o'clock in the evening, 2 minutes after leaving the office, the bodyguard received a call saying I must be dropped on the road. As they dropped the call, they received another call from the security guards from my office saying they have also received a call that they must leave my house. And another thing that is important, if you look at the Public Service Act, it says if a person acts for more than 12 months, that person does not get paid once that person has completed the first 12 months. When I was experiencing all these problems, I was not even getting paid a salary of a director at that time. Very frustrating situation. When I discussed with colleagues, with friends, they said, in the interest of your country, in the interest of your province, with all the things that were in the media against me, very painful situation. I remember one situation with the family as we leave the house, there are headlines there, KZN head is buckling under pressure, his days are numbered. It was not a nice job. It was not a nice job. But of course, with running, I was able to survive. I'll be doing my 10th comrades next year. But I don't harbor any anger towards anybody. I did not take any action against anybody. I did not take anybody to court. Some people were saying, go to the media, public must know about this.
Thanks, Advocate Majola.
Good morning, Advocate Mlojo.
Morning, Mr. Majola.
Unjani?
No, kuyapileka singezwa kuningi.
Sikho.
Yeah.
Can I, but thank you very much for the information you have given. Can I take you back to the case study? I was struck, if I understood you well, that, you know, in your response to Ngwenya, you already looked at issues of mutual legal assistance even before you heard the more details about it. Why was it important for you to look at that stage, even before meeting him?
I would say it's in my nature, sir, to ensure that Auditor General is happy, that there is no wasteful and fruitless expenditure. So at the time when I was in charge of the province, among other things I used to insist is that if there is a meeting, it ought to be a constructive, insightful and meaningful meeting. If there's a problem, that meeting must be able to resolve the problem. There will be no problem thereafter. So up front, I used to get a person to have a wraparound view of what will be discussed so that that person can contribute meaningfully in the discussion. So in this situation, when I looked at it, you know, if you're a lawyer, they call it a legal intuition, a legal hunch, a legal gut feel. That feeling that here we are dealing with a foreign national. He seems to be a bit naughty, possibly with the mutual legal assistance, because if it follows the diplomatic channel, obviously the NDBP office will be the office to have record of that.
Okay, so
Yes.
so you were preparing in anticipation of further, not that you had taken a
No,
decision.
no.
Okay,
Yes.
now I understand you. Thank you very much. And then secondly, you provided us examples of cases in which you were involved. And I'm just trying to suss out what was your purpose, the aim being for us just to know that you were involved in those cases, or was there any other?
You mean the cases that have been attached to the nomination?
Yes, all those cases.
I think the problem one encountered is that there was no rule and fast situation in terms of how the nomination was going to be crafted.
No, don't misunderstand me.
Yes.
I enjoyed, I actually read some of them.
Yes.
And so
To cut the long
but
story,
I just wanted to know from your point of view, what was the purpose?
to cut the long story short, at the time when my nomination was discussed, I was told that in the light of the fact that I'm no longer in the NPA, and obviously one will have to have a balanced view of my experience, I need to favor this forum with both cases that I would have done as a prosecutor and cases that I've done so far as a defense counsel. Then I had to scratch around. Those are the cases I was able to get hold of.
Now I understand. Thank you very much. And then in 2015, 2016, you left
Yes.
the NPA, and now it's 2018, and you're applying to come back. And one might perceive you as a job hopper because you moved out and now you're coming back, and one would ask, why do you want to come back? What would you say?
Okay. When I resigned in 2015,
I mean, I'm asking this question
Yes.
also taking into consideration that all the previous national directors of public prosecution never finished their term. You know, and so are you also going to hop away again?
if I may put it this way, since the beginning of this year, a number of people, whenever I bump into people at the mall, wherever, they will say, should this post be available, we'll nominate you. We need you to make a contribution. In the light of the fact that I would have done quite a variety of things, creating a picture of a job hopper, I think another vantage point from which one must see it is the magnitude of the value that I'm going to add in the system. With all these experiences, I met one member of the judiciary saying, oh, with these review applications, let's hope you'll be reading them properly. In the NPA, I think you saw one matter that I attached there, the reported matter. I think I did only 2 reviews. So, to cut the long...
Including the review in Freight of the case in Freight.
Yes, just two, yes. So I think that benefits more the organization than it benefits me. Hence, I was even to work, even though I was not getting paid as a director in KZN. That's the love I have for justice system.
Yeah, the office you are applying to go to has got even greater pressures than the ones you've just described. And the question is, given what you have done, would it be fair to think that you know, you've got a threshold above which you cannot take pressure. You bow out. And that, therefore, this office may actually cause you to leave again.
In fact, I love challenges. I love challenges because they keep one on their toes, they keep one thinking. As a result of me loving challenges, that is why I try to exercise a lot. You can see there, I'm a runner, I'm a swimmer, trained runner, with a view to try to be calm in situations of that nature. I've had worse situation in the system. I was able to put up with it.
But the cumulative effect made you to leave the system.
It's
and you will also have lots of them. First you will withstand them, but when that threshold comes, you'll take your jacket.
No, what probably it's the presumption that words are always inadequate for one to be able to articulate himself. The point I was attempting to write home about is the point that too much pressure was brought to bear upon me until 2012 July. When I stepped down, I made a move to go full-time to court, to study, to exercise. Then in 2015, it's then that I decided to leave the system for professional growth.
But you're coming back to the system in 2 years' time.
A different person altogether, little bit more mature.
Okay, now you have painted a useful picture of what happens at the NPA, and we are grateful for that. But if you were to be put there, back there, at the head of the NPA, what would you change? How would you change anything, if at all?
I indicated earlier on that the first thing is the opening up of the communication channel, making the working environment conducive. As things stand right now, if you step into the building, the atmosphere is so thick you can cut it with a knife. Try to cremate that atmosphere that is thick first. The continuous engagement, the assurance to the officials that we are all in this together to serve and deliver justice to the people of South Africa. There are so many victims of crime. We know how crime can frustrate one. So that is my take.
You have spoken to us about certain actions that may not be entirely lawful. You know, you said there are people who work who are conscientious, ethical, and so on, and then you said there is this other group you described as lazy. And I assumed from what you were saying that, and also the instructions that come in an unconstitutional way to say, what are you doing with that case and what have you? In other words, that kind of interference. But I don't hear you saying what you're going to do with those, you know. You're just talking about, well, you'll try to,
yes,
you know, cremate the tension that already exists, but the causes of the tension, you do not say anything about.
I do. You'll remember that earlier on, I indicated that perception starts playing itself out with that people are pointed at and those assigned. That by clarifying that one first, it goes, yes.
Yeah, what will you do with the divisions within the NPA?
Continuous engagement, communication.
And that will solve the division.
I strongly believe it will.
If it doesn't?
I'm a man who believes that there is an opportunity in every difficulty, not the other way around. I'm quite optimistic that it will yield the results. I've indicated how I performed in KwaZulu-Natal. Some of the ideas I'm throwing around here, I've tried them, tested them, and then they seemed to be...
You remind me that you also did a program, a one-year program on human resources management. How has that program helped you to be a better manager of human resources, for example? How will it help you?
At some point, I stumbled upon the information that a manager without management qualifications is like a driver without a driver's license who poses danger not only to himself but to the other road users. In the situation of management, there are management prescripts. Coming back to the question that you're asking, the one-year human resource management program that I did, it was made up of 4 modules. Human resource in terms of the recruitment, creation of position, job description, and so on and so forth. That will help me when it comes to the issue of capacitation of the NPA, the recruitment drive, the recruitment process, the absorption of new people in the system.
I get you.
And then the second one, it was a human relations course on how to interact, on how to engage with the other colleagues so that the relationship can remain smooth. And the understanding that human beings are not objects. Time and again there will be those disagreements, those frictions. The mindset, the skill set, this tool set with which one must be able to approach that situation. Obviously.
And where have you applied that?
As you saw my CV in 2008, I was a deputy. If you're a deputy or a manager, I think at that time 4 to 6 people were reporting to me. Senior advocates, junior advocates, as well as the PA, if I may put it that way. I've also been involved in a number of interviews in the NPA before I even left the system. The industrial relations course, the labor relations course, the extent to which one can use a participatory management to get the other colleagues on board. You will see when I was appointed in KZN, there are I think 2 or 3 ladies who were appointed as chief prosecutors. One is Kuzwayo, I think the other one is Dlamini. In my mentorship program, even with the managers, I used to give them management books. So I think it comes very useful in that kind of situation. Hence, if I were to be appointed, that will be my first cry to the minister. Obviously, with cap in hand, literally down on my knees, begging for budget so that one can be able to capacitate the system. Because as things stand right now, as I go to all the courts, prosecutors, they will die of fatigue. We need to have an extra number of prosecutors. You know, even with soccer, there is development. So even in the NPA, if we can have our development structure in place, I think we will have, we will not have a problem in the future.
Thank you, Advocate Mloto.
Thank you. Advocate Celia.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Advocate.
Morning, sir.
Do I understand the situation correct that when you took over as the acting DPP, relationships in that office were not very good?
Yes, I would say so.
And were you able to build it up to a better level during your stint as the acting DPP?
Absolutely, because when I conducted my own analysis, among other things, I picked up that the absenteeism rate was going through the roof. Unhappy people fall sick easily. When I addressed this issue of communication, people becoming happy and be able to be themselves, the absenteeism dropped. Another point of concern was that if you look at the profile when it comes to performance assessment, the people who happen to scoop the cash performance bonuses, it was skewed in favor of certain risk groups against certain risk groups. If you go to the archives now, you look for that period, boom, it was balanced.
Do you think you will be able to do the same at the national level if you are being appointed?
I will think new problems still can be solved with old solutions.
Do you think your stint in the private practice will assist you, or will it be a problem for you, the fact that you had been away for approximately 3 years?
It's not a problem at all, because I still have that relationship with the people in the system. They still call me for advice. I've got a convention here, I'm in court, how do I present it? I correct them, it's not a confession. The judge has not made a ruling, it's a confession. Or the magistrate has a statement amounting to.
Just on a personal level, why do one run so far if not being chased?
Come again?
Why does one run so far if not being chased?
Do I come across it? Okay, no, I understand the point.
Comrades Marathon.
Now, Advocate, you said what one sees is what one get, and I like what I see. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Mr. Sigogo.
Thank you, Chairperson. How are you, Mr. Advocate?
Super fine, Mr. Sikoko, and you?
I'm good. I like this super fine. Particularly after recovering from this pressure you shared with us, and you still are able to identify what's super fine.
Yes.
So it tells us that there is hope. You were nominated by several organizations. There's a nomination here by Mr. Nzimande Sivan. You know the person?
Absolutely. I've worked with him. We both attached to the same BLA branch, Peter Marisbeck.
Oh, okay. You are a member of the Pregnant Association.
That is the position since 2001.
Okay. Thank you. This person says at page 2 of his nomination that during his tenure as a leader of prosecutors in the province of KwaZulu-Natal, he developed a good professional rapport with advocates, prosecutors, attorneys, and judges. He contributed and ensured that there was smooth running of courts, and he has contributed to the administration of justice. He has been in intellect and astuteness with his uncompromising professionalism and maturity, which allow him to be held in high esteem amongst his colleagues. I want to expand.
You see, if you look at the criminal justice system, if the relations between the defense and the state are good, there's smooth running of the court. In the sense that with smooth relationship, a defense counsel or an attorney is able to say, hey, look, I think I've got a 105A here, can we talk? I intend giving a 1122 here, can we talk? So the encouragement of that kind of relationship between the prosecutors as well as the defense goes a very long way in creating a conducive environment for justice. Something that I think, even if I were to be appointed, I will continue doing, engaging both the defense as well as the encouraging our prosecutors. If in the event there are these reasonable and fairness approaches by the defense, that they also do the same, they reciprocate.
So to me, it says you have spare for them. I tell us that you appointed. you can bring this skill in the management of the NPA?
It's one of the things that I think I'll have to do, the stakeholder analysis. Who comes first, and so on and so forth. For instance, as a defense counsel, I can't survive without the briefing attendant. If one looks at how the criminal justice system is structured, it becomes apparent to me that if I were to be appointed, the first call I will make will be to beg Minister, can we meet? Can we sit across the table? What are your challenges? This is my SIU, the same. IPIT, Mr. Makra, the same. So that is the Hawks. Fortunately, at some point, I worked with the head of the Hawks in one of the high-profile cases here. There will be no need for me to be introduced, and then identify other relevant stakeholders in the system that can help us put the shoulder to the wheel, so that justice as a service can be received by the victim of crimes.
I heard you when you were presenting, particularly in response to questions by my colleague, Mr. Nochesi, that you are aware where to get your direction, and which is the Constitution. As you have indicated how you responded to intervention by Advocate Mugwebe. So I see here in this motivation as well, this is now on page 5. It says, he is conscientious, hardworking, and very determined person. His legal acumen, his unwavering, unswerving commitment to the rule of law, his credentials and experience in the law exhibit that he is suitably qualified for the positions. I want you to tell us, how do you see the application of the rule of law in respect of the position of NPPP in as far as it relates to his or her relations with the Director of Public Prosecutions at the provincial level?
If one looks closely at the entity, in inverted commas, NPA, it is supposed and it is committed to both rule of law and the Constitution. The former, the rule of law, if you look at it in its primordial form, in its original form, I think the gentleman, the British scholar Anton Dicey, according to him, when it comes to rule of law, it serves two purposes. Firstly, it curtails the abuse of an individual by the state. In so doing, protects the right of the individual. To enunciate that, my stance has been and always been, the decision to prosecute is a serious decision to take. It frustrates the person, mentally draining, emotionally and otherwise. Take the case to court when you are sure that you have got an evidence to back that allegation up. 2, if the Constitution says every case taken to court shall be commenced and finalized without unreasonable delay, hence the cliche, justice delayed is justice denied. There should be quick finalization of matters. The identification of constraints and bottlenecks that should be shaved off so as to ensure that that is realized. Obviously, with the Constitution, its preamble is very paramount. Paramount in the sense that it demands that we all these rights encapsulated in the Constitution, that they get fulfilled, respected, protected, and promoted. In an instance where we conduct a prosecution, because by virtue of the fact that the person is taken to court, it doesn't necessarily that that person is guilty until the court makes a pronouncement. So it's another thing that has been concerning me when I listen to the reporting of cases by the spokespersons. For instance, you find a person is making an appearance in court. You see the spokesperson saying, yes, the person has been arrested, we have a strong case here, we have got a confession, we have got an admission. In terms of my book, that is not right. You know, anything can happen in court. It puts pressure on the judiciary, it puts pressure on the prosecuting counsel, and then my take is, why comment about the evidence? So the rule of law and the constitution, that is my maybe you can call it simplism.
Let's deal now with your last days at KZN in the NPA. You said you dedicated this last time of stay in the institution to be going to court. What was your position at that time?
When I was appointed to act, at that time I was holding the rank of a deputy director of prosecutions. When I stepped down, I had to go back to my deputy director of prosecutions position, because when I was acting, I think my span of control, prosecutors in the province, I think plus or minus 800, meaning that reduced the span of control in the sense that when returning to my original capacity, I was going to manage between 4 and 6, which freed me up to do what I loved. I loved to go back to court. Go back to court because in KZN, I think from 2001 to 2003, there is a gentleman who is now late, Advocate Engelbrecht SC. He was in charge of the training of the prosecutors in the entire province. I was so fortunate to be attached to him way back in 2001 to train the police, which is the main reason why, among other things, when I was appointed in May 2010, the first meeting I had was with the provincial commissioner in KZN to sit her down and say, look, I'm a court person. You know, if you don't go to court as a lawyer, it's like soccer. If you're not fielded, you lose the form. So to stay on form, let me put it that way, as well as, because it's part of education, you learn a lot in court, because whatever submissions you make, because the judge or the magistrate is bound to account for whatever that has been placed before him or her, that is where you learn your submissions being criticized, reasons being given why your submissions are accepted, why they are not accepted. As you drive back home, you say, yeah, this is law. I've learned something today.
In your answer about how you felt when you were being questioned or being requested to give reports about the matters that you do in court, I do not want this panel to misinterpret what you have said. One could think that you were saying, it is me who is going to court. I need not be asked any question. And because you don't go to court, you can't ask me these questions if this case was strong, if this case was not easy. So if you are in NDPP, you are not going to go to court, you are going to manage those who are going to court. And if you ask them how they fare in court, and they come with the attitude of saying, you are sitting in the head office and you're starting to ask us about the court cases. Will you not feel that like this could be some sort of undermining? I want you to make us understand if maybe you did not create an impression that your head at that time could think that now you are undermining.
Point that I was trying to drive home, I think it's the point, I think 4 or 5 prosecutors over the weekend after seeing my name also called me, that in the system you find there's a control prosecutor, there's a senior prosecutor, there's a deputy. People who, if you ask when last were in court, can't tell you. The person always in court says, no evidence here. Person always in the office says, no, go and proceed. and prosecute. So my view has always been, if I see, as I did previously, as a deputy, there is a case, my subordinate says to me, no, there is no case. I take the case and prosecute myself. Because I've got that conviction, I can be able to persuade the court the way I saw the case. So it becomes so problematic if the narrative becomes, the more conviction you get, the more the narrative becomes stronger that, oh, possibly it was easy cases. So that's the point I was trying to illustrate.
You shared with us that when you took over to act as the DPP, the statistics were not good. Out of 9, the province was on position 8.
That is the position.
And when you left, it was on position 2.
In fact, not when I left. The following year in March.
The following year, it was on position 2. When you left, what position was it? When you left,
in 2015.
When you stepped down from the position, what position was it?
I think when I left, sure.
No, not when you left the department.
In 2012.
When you stepped down from your position, and going back to from acting position to your real position, what position was it?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember now. I can't remember, must be honest. Yeah. Yes, I can't.
Do you know what position is it now?
No, I don't.
I don't. To know that?
I don't.
If you know by any chance, you don't. So, today you came to us with another picture of how you see the divisions in the head office. Those who are working hard and those who are lazy. Do you have a plan to address those who are lazy and also the cushion that they have in order to sustain their stay in the NPA?
So as I earlier stated, that with those who are performing get discouraged by the other group, that is the assurance I was trying to give, that to first assure those who are working that let's capitalize on that strength. While they are performing, we also, I think the other group will automatically fall into shape. But everybody will be addressed on equal basis. That because at the end of the day, because if you look at the NPA, you can see it is victim-centered. That's the client that we are all supposed to be serving. That's the client we are all supposed to be pulling our weight and ensure that justice is received by him or her. So to cut the long story short is communication, engagement, giving people space to air their views. Maybe they have got a good explanation as well. There is a number of explanations that may come up. That is the continuous engagement, a process I think that can also educate me, because I'll operate from the presumption that whoever does something rightly or wrongly, there must be an explanation. So as a manager, one must strive to get that explanation. If it satisfies the plausibility test, it's a clear, satisfactory, and a convincing explanation. I don't think there will be a problem in convincing a person to act in a particular way. Hence, they say the fish begins to rot at the head.
Yeah. So if they do not fit in your plan, and the divisions persist, what then would be the solution that you would bring?
Obviously, as I indicated, that NPA's commitment is unswerving to rule of law and the Constitution. Whatever I do, I'll have to do within the boundaries of those two principles, the rule of law and the Constitution. The way the public sector is, in the event of a misconduct or a pure disciplinary issue, one will have to invoke the disciplinary prescripts with a view to address that problem. Hence, when you look at, I think it's Circular 1 of 2003, the one that talks about the discipline and so on and so forth, it emphasizes the point that the way as an employer or employer representative approach the accused employee, it ought to be corrective and not punitive. That is the most important one. The corrective measure to get that official back into line.
You spoke to us about the Amigos case. You were summoned at the head office, and after the discussion, it was resolved that the matter is not going to be withdrawn.
Yes.
So, what was the purpose of the meeting? Was to get the matter withdrawn, or was to understand the matter by the head office?
As I indicated earlier on, that the bite-sized introductory remark by the chairperson of that meeting was, the DPP KZN requires assistance. I've never approached anybody for assistance. Hotly and heartily on the heel of that introductory remark, guys, we have to cut costs here and see if we cannot eliminate some of the accused. But to be honest,
you stood your ground that you have a case.
To tell you the truth, there was lunch had been organized there. After that meeting, I stood up, I left, my team followed me. We never ate even the food at VGM. I think that will give you a clearer picture of the kind of the atmosphere it was.
Let's say you are appointed to head the institution. These sort of things that we have identified, are you giving us assurance that they will never see the light of the day under your leadership? Team will be my mantra. Together, everyone achieves more. Let's work as a team. I want you to tell us, I'm concluding. I've got an understanding that when NPA is at war, crime will thrive. Can you talk to us on that?
If I follow a literal grammatical meaning of that statement, I think it is twofold. In an instance where there is this crisis between the officials within the entity, the mandate that we are all supposed to be carrying out gravitate into oblivion. Boom, is forgotten. Again, when there is a fight, for instance, taking cases with no evidence to court, you leave cases with evidence with evidence out of the system. That contradiction is a problem. Is a problem. Hence, my insistence that, in recognition of the fact that this decision to prosecute frustrates the person, the family, and everybody, let's take that decision only in an instance where we know the allegation we made. That's why I was making an example. Allegation and the evidence should operate like two wings of the same bird. You can't make allegations and fail to come up with the evidence to sustain the allegation. That gives a problem. Again, in my book, responsibility and accountability represent two sides of the same coin. If a prosecutor makes a decision, on the other side of the coin, that prosecutor is called upon to at least give factual and legal basis upon which that decision was made. If that person who made a decision is blowing hot and cold, huffing and puffing, it's an indication that that is a pathetic decision. Because as a lawyer, you work with solid facts. If you have made a decision they are called upon to account, you throw the solid facts onto the table. You throw the law that would have applied. Then the culminating point, the conclusion from there, it speaks for itself whether you're right or wrong. It shouldn't be based on emotions, on feelings, on attitudes, facts, factors, circumstances that will also enable the court to reach a specific.
Finally, with the candidate, I'm enjoying talking to you
Yes.
about this thing. Maybe it's because you are sharing with us your ideas. But since this institution was established, it has never had a permanent female head. And what do you think about transformation? Maybe to stabilize this institution, what do you think if it can be led for once by a female? Do you think there could be some stability in the institution?
It's just that with the word transformation, it's also a controversial one, in the sense that it's relative. As a result, absolutization around it appears to be a big of a problem. In my book, transformation is not about numbers. I wouldn't be happy to be put in a position on the basis and strength that, because of, it should be based on the capabilities. Then back to the question whether or not I'll be happy if a female candidate gets appointed. We are living in South Africa.
A capable one for that, not just because it's a female.
As far as I understand, we've never had a female candidate, and we can't change the past, but we change the present for the future. In an instance where there is a capable female with the necessary experience, qualifications, then I will still be happy.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Advocate Manye.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Advocate Mlocha.
Yes, sir.
Let's start off with the case study. I'm just going to touch on one aspect in the case study that you dealt extensively with. In your response to the President, the Minister, the DG, and Ms. Smith, you indicated that your approach in responding to them or in dealing with them would be measured and more educational to them to understand the divisions of power within every organ that is involved in the scenario, correct?
That is correct.
All right. Now, let's take the case where you were called up to the head office. You went with your team. And you'll correct me if I had you wrong, incorrectly, that you stated that a decision before you even went up there had been taken to withdraw.
Come again?
Charges. A decision had already been taken to withdraw, which was later reversed and then the charges were proceeded with.
No. When we went up to the head office, it was already in the newspapers that something was going to happen to the case.
Yes, and you asserted that you received a call that you have to withdraw those charges.
No.
Okay.
I think I made an example with two cases, the Amigos case and the Toshampande case.
Yes.
With the Toshampande case, it's a case where representation was made directly to the special director, leaving me in the division.
Correct.
And then with the Amigos case, in the newspapers, something is going to happen. Then I got invited there. I take my team there. After the analysis of the evidence existed then, evidence existing now, agreement being reached, then that was the end of it as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
Thereafter, I was out of the picture.
All right, thank you. Let's talk about the matter where representations were made directly to the NDPP. I would assume, without concluding, that you were not consulted when that happened. You were only informed that representation had already been made, correct?
That is the position.
And that does not accord well with the provisions of Section 179 5D of the Constitution, does it? That representations be made directly without you having been consulted.
I think that is the problem I used to encounter to explain to people, because
No, let's stick to the scenario. Let's not talk about what
Yes.
you used to encounter. I'm saying at that point that the Constitution provisions had already been violated, correct?
I would think so.
No, you shouldn't think so. You should know so, isn't it? Because that's what the Constitution provisions provides.
Yes.
All right. And when that happened, going back to the case study again, where you took time to actually educate all these officials involved in trying to interfere with that, you did not raise anything to the NDPP to say, but now what you just did, or what you're talking to me about, is totally in contravention of the provisions of the Constitution.
Yeah,
Are you aware of that?
as I indicated to you, because I'm no longer in the system,
Yes.
I kept emails of my communication. I will have to go back and retrieve the emails. I remember at some point there was some reference to the Constitution saying, exactly as I did with the Tosham Parliament, that the Constitution doesn't put the special director in the picture, review-wise.
Yes.
Yes. I'll have to retrieve the emails. I think there was some discussion around
But as you
that.
sit here, you cannot recall.
Yes,
You
no.
specifically raised that and say, listen, what you just did right now is in violation of the provisions of the Constitution.
Look, as a lawyer, I had to look at the situation. Oh, to cut the long story short, let's say, yes.
And the culture. Forget the policy and the culture within.
No.
But indirect, I think the advocate did say that he did say to them that the special director doesn't enter into the space
In the case study check.
on this when they were called.
Now, you further stated that when you are acting in the position of the deputy director,
Yes.
you had success that invoked certain levels of jealousy towards him.
Call it professional jealousy.
Right. And you said, you further stated that when one projects power or one has access to power, you recall that, saying that. What did you mean by that? What power did you have, or what were you projecting? Access to power, to which power were you talking about?
If I may be allowed to use rumors. As I say, I still interact with the officials. If the NDPP is presumed to be having access to power, goes to the DPP office of the division. People are called to come and see that NDPP. A hard-working advocate who arrives in the office at 6 in the morning, because he has to come and see the NDPP, he borrows a jersey from another female colleague. As he steps into the boardroom, he is told, you can't see me dressing like this.
Is that projection of power?
You have got a situation, senior officials in the organization, if sleeping in the hotel, people are checking like this. Why? Person says, I've got eyes and ears everywhere. SSA, intelligence. It's the cumulative effect of things that galvanize one to make certain inferences. Whether they are the only inferences to be drawn under the circumstances, it becomes a different topic altogether. Again, there was a situation where the former DPP Free State, it was a leadership workshop. She couldn't attend it in Free State. The head office made a ruling that because she did not attend that leadership workshop in the Free State, she must attend it in UKZN. As she was attending in the UKZN, well, of course, I'll have to declare as a sister-in-law, because she's always sticking to me like a crazy glue, though she was a DPP that side. The DPP in the KZN is saying, when he's supposed to be making introductory remark, I know here there's somebody who does not work in this division who went to the president to recommend somebody other than me, referring to. Does it make sense? Sister-in-law is from another division. A reference is made to somebody from another division who wanted somebody to be appointed permanently as the DPP KZN. Does it not give a picture that that person is using that to demonstrate that?
But in this case, you're referring to yourself. That in this case, you're referring to yourself that this jealousy arose once projected either delayed leadership and also access to power. You were referring to yourself when you made that statement, not referring to anyone else.
No, I was a bit generic.
Okay.
Yes, but as I indicated, maybe my words were not inadequate enough to.
Now, I must commend you on sharing light on the and more light, and I suppose the society. I know that the panel does appreciate that you shed more light on the power struggles within the NPA that have been going on for so many years. Would it be a fair assessment that if this panel does, at the end of the day, recommend you to the president for the position of the NDPP, you would indeed, after experiencing what you have experienced, after being put through everything that you have been put through, you would definitely have scores to settle. Would it be a fair assessment?
No, I'm not a vindictive person at all. Otherwise, if I was a vindictive person, I would have kept all this information to myself up until the opportunity arises that I get into the position, then boom. But what has happened here, because I believe in the principle that sunshine is the greatest disinfectant. Rest assured, I'm not that kind of a person, not at all.
Would it not be perceived as settling scores, even if you're putting stringent measures in place to root out whatever is rotten, so to speak, in the NPA?
Look, probably one will have to revert to management general. You'll remember that earlier on I indicated that managing people is unlike managing. People are not objects. People change all the time. People are stressed out there. Prosecution job is quite stressful. So the point I'm trying to write home about is that the good thing to do, to continuously engage people, to be with them in their struggles. If I were to be appointed, if an advocate is doing a high-profile case, I need to be there to give him support. If he fumbles, rest assured, you are protected. It won't be held against you. Another thing, as I indicated, that the Minister of Police is the first port of call. The police proportionality principle. When the matter goes to the High Court, you find that the investigating officer is there. But when the matter is in the lower court, the investigating officer is not there. You see a prosecutor stretching to the breaking point, trying to get hold of the investigating office. When working together with the police, we say, guys, justice in the High Court is as good as justice in the lower court, in terms of the treatment that we administer to the cases that we are handling.
Let me pick up on where Advocate Majola left you on the issue of the stress levels that you are now contemplating on taking over if indeed you are appointed as the National Director of Public Prosecution. You came under enormous pressure from your colleagues and the head office while you were still in KZN, correct?
That is correct.
And that came at a health cost to you, stress to the family life, to the point where you decided to resign?
No.
No.
Resignation was 3 years later.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
That was now after being frustrated, basically. After frustration, that somebody else who was reporting to you has now been elevated, and now the working relationship between yourself are no longer conducive.
But in terms of the magnitude, the degree of the stress,
Yes.
if you juxtapose the stress level at the time shortly before I stepped down and the time when I caved in 2015, you would appreciate that it had dropped
I'm
drastically.
talking about the stress levels.
I think it was more of a frustration than stress when I resigned.
All right. And now, if you are now elevated from where you were, I know that you are now at the bar practicing, but now if you assume the position of the NDPP, and the stress levels are much more increased as a result of the superiors that you'll now be dealing with, as it was in the case study. How do you handle that? Because we already told this panel that indeed you suffered health-wise.
I think law, in general, as a jurist, is quite a stressful job. As I indicate to you, that last week Monday I was in court, Wednesday in court, traveling 600 kilometers.
But this is different, isn't it?
But the name still remains. It's the stress. I'm trying to explain to you that, as I indicated to you earlier on, that I'm a person who loves challenges. No matter how highly demanding and challenges may happen to play themselves in the situation.
Okay. In fairness to all the other applicants that came before this panel, that I posted this question to them, you were aware of what was happening, more especially involved in the decision process making in the NPA, correct? Your decisions were interfered with. Attempts were made for you to change the decisions that you took independently and impartially, I believe. When you say, what do you mean?
I'm listening.
Oh, you're listening, you're not responding.
My response will be, for instance, with the cattle matter, I raised my own concerns in the matter. If you go to the review by Judge Govan, concerns I raised are the same questions that Judge Govan was raising in the review. In other words, I couldn't do anything because I knew the court of law will be objective, will be impartial, and then I will be vindicated. The same with the withdrawals. I don't know how many people came to me saying they are saying something you did in this case, somebody can't do anything about this case. I knew that eventually the case will go to court.
When you stepped down and Advocate Noko was appointed, and shortly thereafter, the decisions that you had taken to prosecute in certain matters, high-profile matters, those matters were withdrawn, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, and you were aware that those matters were withdrawn from the court?
That is true.
And you're also aware of the reports, media reports that came thereafter that almost accused her of having been appointed to basically come and withdraw those matters?
Yes.
Did you do anything about that?
Absolutely
Did you
not.
confirm those media reports? Say that that's exactly...
Absolutely. You remember earlier on, I said I never wanted to come across as a bitter ex-lover. That because I've been having this position, I'm no longer in this position, then I would have come across as somebody who's trying to pay a revenge. As I say to you, we need to adopt an individualistic approach because that's where my explanation is based. If you approach this case by case, with the Katomena case, it was in court. With the Toshampande matter, it was withdrawn, but I understand that at the time Xolisi Nxasane was reviewing I was seeing in the media that the matter was in his office for review. I couldn't tamper with those processes. With the Amigo case, I don't know how many times the teams have been changed there. When I stepped down, I understand another team was roped in.
You'd appreciate the fact that And as much as this has been televised, that the society would appreciate the insight that you have given into what actually happened, because those questions might have been lingering in the minds of many people.
In fact, some people are saying I must write a book.
Yes, that's what I'm coming to. Now, if you have not basically came out in public denouncing what you know went wrong with that decision-making process and the withdrawal of those such matters, that would have exactly vindicated you today and in the society's and public eye.
You see, that is the debate I've been having with people close to me, both in the legal fraternity and otherwise. My answer has always been, I rely on evolution. As things evolve, they will one day evolve in my favor. See how things are evolving now. Tosha Mpande, I understand that the matter is going back to court. The court will make pronouncements in those matters without me tampering with those matters, coming across as if I'm also interfering with my colleagues who are prosecutors in the matter.
Wouldn't it have been in the public interest if you had really came out publicly and stated your displeasure about all these things? You have named names today, and I appreciate that fact. And had you done this to the public, not just to this panel, to the public then, in the public interest?
Look, it's quite an interesting point, because this public interest debate, it's quite a philosophical one, in the sense that at some point one gets confused whether should do what is in the interest of the public or what will interest the public. As I said to you, at some stage I had security guards that were removed. I had to be dropped off on the road. So it's quite a number of, it's a cocktail of factors that I had to take into account. My family, I've got kids at home, you know. So the situation, it was not that easy. The security guards that were at home had been removed. So everybody calling me, hey, you have gone thinner. I used to justify myself, no, I'm compact, I'm not thin. So it was not easy. But it's the idealism versus realism situation. Ideally, I agree with you, it's something that could have happened. But looking at this background that I've given you, in reality, my back was against the wall. The system, in fact, here, failed me.
I can give you an example of people, individuals that refused to bow down to pressure, intimidation, people that were ridiculed for what they were bringing out in the public interest. One name comes to mind with the state capture inquiry that is going on, Fikki Mentur for that matter. And you said you had your back against the wall. This panel and society would have had to wait until you make a decision whether to write that book, and it would only have been then that all this that you have told us, obviously you didn't tell us in total details, but you gave a glimpse of what is going on there. We would have to wait until then, and the public would have to wait until then to find that in the book, isn't it?
I think as a jurist you'll agree with me that it's the same with cross-examination in the court. The timing. When do I pose this question, how and when? But to cut the long...
In the process, the NPA would still be sinking deeper and deeper, and the society would be disillusioned with what is happening in the NPA, because we would be in the dark as to what is happening in the NPA. We would have been in the background watching all this unfold.
But I think the fundamental law is that we all become wiser in hindsight. Hindsight is the scientific, it's
a perfect science.
It's a perfect science, because when you sit back, kick the shoes off, put the thinking cap on, you do all your multiplications, divisions, and so on and so forth. But circumstances, because circumstances have changed and changed completely. Because if you compare the circumstances I was in then and the circumstances now, they're as different as chalk and cheese.
If you are recommended to be appointed by the President of this country to the head of the National Director of Public Prosecutions, you would agree with me that the problems that you left in 2015 have now taken root in the NPA. The courts have declared in many judgments that the NPA has become obstructive in administration of justice and prosecution of these matters before the court.
I fully agree. But as I indicated to you, that my personal undertaking is to be part of the solution, not part of the problem. Those part of the problem to be got into, to be brought into line through continuous engagement, awareness, opening up the communication channels, and in some instances invoking the disciplinary prescripts.
You made two distinctions of the people that are in the NPA. You said there are those that are willing to work, that need encouragement. Those that do come to work but they're not willing to work. What I want to pose to you is, what you haven't said anything about how you're going to deal decisively with those that are not willing to work. You only stated when the chair asked you and Mr. Advocate Majola asked you, you kept on saying that maybe pep talk will work. Teamwork, work, team. Will that be enough really to root out all those that are not willing to work?
You'll remember that I indicated that other than those communication channels, the awareness things and so on and so forth, I indicated that there will be instances where one will have to resort to disciplinary prescripts. Disciplinary prescripts indicate in the public sector which situation warrants disciplinary proceedings, which situation.
He did say that, Advocate.
Thank you, Chair. That's better.
Thanks, Advocate. Do you have previous convictions?
No.
Is there any question you want to pose to this panel?
No, except that I got a cordial treatment from the organizers, the team that was arranging for us candidates to come here. I love a 5-star treatment.
Can you repeat that? I missed it.
I was saying I don't have any question except that I'm still impressed by the cordial treatment I received from the ladies at the back who were making arrangements for us to be here. I feel like a kid having ice cream for the first time.
Or in the candy store. So that brings us to the end of this interview. Through the presidency, you will be informed about the outcome of this interview.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Colleagues, can we break? Now we'll be back at 2 o'clock sharp.
Prosecutor, malicious injury to property. Like